Hello and welcome to another HanDrinksSolo wine info video. And today we are talking about Idiom's Rosso di Stellenbosch, or Red Wine of Stellenbosch 2018. Now in the video, what I want to do is give you a little bit of background on Idiom as a wine range. Then I want to give you some history of Sangiovese in Stellenbosch specifically. And then after that, we're going to talk about how today's wine was made and what it tastes like in the glass. This is admittedly a slightly longer video, so if you really just want some quick tasting notes, then feel free to skip ahead to that particular chapter as listed on the video timeline below this video. Idiom is a wine brand owned by the Bottega family, who also own the Capo Vineyards, from which some of the Idiom wines are sourced. The Capo Vineyards sits up at around 250 meters above sea level in the Helderberg area, in this beautiful little basin that slopes down towards the Atlantic Ocean. The vineyards are situated about 35 minutes east of the city of Cape Town, and they are planted mostly in decomposed granite and Table Mountain sandstone. The visit to the tasting room is well worth this little drive, as the view is incredible, staring out over the town of Somerset West, but also over some of the neighboring estates that make the valley so special. Estates like Whalehaven, that won the 2021 Wine Mag Award for Winery of the Year, and also, more relevantly for today's discussion, Morgenster, an estate that has also championed the cultivar of Sangiovese in the Helderberg region. Now, a fair question to ask at this point would be, Han, what are Idiom doing farming Sangiovese in Stellenbosch when everybody knows that Stellenbosch is all about Cabernet Sauvignon and red Bordeaux style blends? To answer that question properly, we need to take a slightly closer look at the Bottega family, but we also need to look at their extended circle of friends and peers who shaped their decision to plant Sangiovese in Stellenbosch. And on one level, you'd say, well, it's obvious that they would plant Italian cultivars. Alberto Bottega was born in Milan. His family grew up in the northeast part of Italy in Piedmont. And even when they did eventually immigrate to the Cape in the 1950s, they made a point of entrenching themselves in the well-developed local Italian community. The logical extension of all this would be that if they decide to plant grapes and make wine, it will be with Italian cultivars. But there's just one little inconvenient truth that messes with our whole beautiful, coherent Italian theory. And that is that Alberto Bottega is one crazy Merlot nut. Now, he had plans for a whole range of harebrained Merlot clonal intense schemes, and that's why even to this day there are still a bunch of Merlot blocks planted around the estate. But thankfully, a little bit of peer pressure as well as some hard work from fellow winemakers in the area successfully led to the Idiom wine range as we know it today, which includes this Rosso di Stellenbosch, as well as some slightly more serious reserve Sangiovese, Barbera, and Nebbiolo wines. The way Alberto tells the story, Alberto's friend Anthony Rupert had already imported a number of Italian cultivars for his estate of Lomeron in France. In fact, Rupert had had these components in the ground for some time and had already got to the phase where he had Sangiovese actually fermenting in the cellar. So when Alberto popped in for a visit, he was incredibly impressed by what he tasted and smelt from these Sangiovese parcels. Adding some social momentum to his sensory stimulation, it was also true that at the time, a little further down the slope, the state of Morgenster had been founded by the Piedmont native Bertrand family, and they were equally committed to planting cultivars like Sangiovese and Nebbiolo. So on the local scene, there was some growing excitement about planting Italian cultivars in the Cape. But then there is also the wider global Sangiovese scene, which needs to be considered. When one tracks Sangiovese's diaspora around the globe to places like Mendoza in Argentina, or Washington State on the American West Coast, or even Bulgaria on the Tuscan coast, and Stellenbosch in South Africa, there is a definite pattern that emerges. Wherever this particularly late-ripening, terroir-expressive, moody, herbal beastie of a grape goes and finds success, there appears to be another late-ripening, moody, high-tannin, herbal beastie of a cultivar already there doing quite well. For those of you who haven't already guessed it, that cultivar is Cabernet Sauvignon.
I'm kind of a big deal.
In all the world's most outstanding stellar Cabernet Sauvignon regions, Sangiovese is often right there, performing equally well. So when one comes back to the assertion that Stellenbosch is indeed South Africa's premier Cabernet Sauvignon region, it's hardly surprising that some of the high-lying vineyards, especially on decomposed granite, are producing some incredibly high-quality Sangiovese parcels. So to tie it all together, a little bit of community spirit as well as some local excitement on the enological front, combined with a global trend that supports Sangiovese being in regions that are Cabernet friendly, has been enough to ensure the beautiful little wine that we have in the glass today. Rosso di Stellenbosch, in case you hadn't guessed it already, is 100% Sangiovese. The grapes are destemmed and crushed. Destemmed mostly because Sangiovese already has quite a pronounced herbal component and we don't want to boost those green notes any further. But aside from that, the winemaking is really quite simple. All parcels were tank fermented, and winemaker Reino Tiart ensures me that pump overs were done in as gentle a manner as possible, which in part explains the soft nature of the tannins in the glass. After fermentation, malolactic conversion was allowed to take place, and finally the wine was aged for about 18 months in French oak. But what does it all taste like, you rightly ask? And I'd say before trying this guy, he's worth chilling in the fridge just for 20 minutes or so. And when we give him a whiff, we get a really enchanting mix of some quite playful cherry lifesaver candy alongside raspberry sherbet elements, and these are all overlaid with some slightly more serious sort of dried herbal sage. Finally, just to round it off and give it a little bit of mystique, there's a definite note of fresh tilled earth, or petrichor if you prefer. Now, when we taste it, there's kind of this reverse attack thing going on, because up front, you get the sweeter strawberry element, some of that cherry candy I talked about, and the raspberry sherbet, but then you have the sour cherry acidity that kind of grows over time and opens up. And then it reaches this sort of crescendo where it presents as a kind of cherry flavored Sour Patch Kid candy. And if you love that effect, then you really should chill it even further, because as it cools, that zingy acid will become more pronounced. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. But if you have any questions, drop them into the comment section below this video. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then be sure to subscribe to the HanDrinksSolo channel, where we talk about unusual cultivars, wine history, wine science, as well as some of the rising winemaking stars coming out of the dynamic South African winelands.